Hi everyone, my name is Anal Annandale and I'm an educational psychologist. This video forms part of a series on early learning, and throughout this series I'm wanting to focus with you on the foundational skills that children need in order to learn to read and to do maths. Now when I say foundational skills, I mean the pre-literacy skills and the pre-numeracy skills that we know help to build brains, because this is the stuff that lifelong learning and hopefully academic success along with it is built. When I put this series together, it was very important for me that it was accessible to all. So please feel free to share these videos, and you'll see that whenever I'm going to show you ideas for activities that you could do with your kids, I'm going to try and use items that are easily found in most households. Through this series, we are going to focus on 4 aspects. We are going to have a look at auditory perceptual skills, visual perceptual skills, concept development, and physical aspects as they relate to fine and gross motor skills. We would really like to hear from you, so please do leave us your comments and your questions below. We'll try and get back to them as soon as we can. And please also remember that we are on Facebook and on Instagram if these platforms are more accessible to you. Okay, so the theme for this week is 3 principles of learning. And I want to specifically focus with you on these in the first session because I want you to keep them in mind throughout the series. The first principle that we have to keep in mind is that learning has to be fun. Now this is something that we know as teachers, right? Kids just do seem to learn better when they're having fun. But finally, we also have the neuroscience to support that. So both brain imaging and brain chemical studies have found that children do seem to have superior learning when they're having fun. It seems that information is not only transferred better, but also stored better during enjoyable activities. The second aspect is that learning has to be multisensory. The more of your child's senses they engage while they're learning something, the better they're going to remember it. And the reason for that is that when we learn something new, our brain cells build connections. And we know that during the early years, this happens at a very rapid rate, but it does seem to slow down as we age. Now, if your child is using lots of different senses to learn one concept, it means that their brains are also going to be forming lots of different connections for that one concept. And it makes it much easier for the brain to access that information at a later date. Think of it a little bit as multi-indexing. Okay, and the third principle is that learning has to happen from the concrete to the abstract. And we look specifically at 3 stages for this. So I'll take you through them. The first is the concrete, then the 2-dimensional, and then the abstract stage. And an easy example would be that your child would first have to have the experience of seeing and hearing and smelling a horse before they are able to identify different pictures of horses and finally understand that the word horse refers to an animal that can have lots of similar characteristics, but could also differ in characteristics such as color or the environment in which it's found. So what this means is very much what teachers also call scaffolding. It means that we're going to start from a base of what the child knows and then add new information onto that. In neuroscience, this is often called anchoring ideas, so that your child needs to have really consolidated and mastered a concept in order to anchor a new concept onto that. And this is often where I see parents make the mistake of jumping straight to teaching their children letters and numbers. Keep in mind that letters and numbers are actually just abstract symbols that represent sounds and quantities. Now, I am not saying that you shouldn't have numbers and alphabet charts and words and letters in your child's room or in the environment in which they move, it's really important for them to see those symbols. But that relates at this age more to something that we call incidental learning than to actually formally learning those letters and numbers yet. Let's first build a solid foundation. And then later on in this series, I am going to show you how to teach your child to read and to do maths. Now, if we jump back to those three principles, that learning needs to be fun, that it needs to be multisensory, and that it needs to move from the concrete to the abstract. You'll see that worksheets don't actually fulfill any of those criteria. And that's the reason that we advocate so much for hands-on activities. If it's at all possible, please try and avoid using worksheets with your children under the age of 5. In this series, I'm going to be showing you lots of different ideas of how to do hands-on learning activities. That is pretty much my story for this week. In next week's video, we are going to have a look at 3 aspects of auditory perception. And if at all possible, this week, as you move around your house, try and be aware of all the different sensory experiences you can present to your child. Think, for instance, of all the different smelly things that you have in your kitchen and in your bathroom, to perhaps the way that you can use things like food coloring to add color to activities, to the different kind of textures you have in your house, the feel of sand, of different grains, of sanding paper, or maybe the different types of fabric of the clothes that you have hanging up in your cupboard. And as we go through this series, I'm going to show you how to use those. Thanks so much, everybody, and have an amazing week.